Hello, everyone. I'm Mr. E.
And I'm Molten Mortimer, the Authenticator, and we have the Duality of Man.
Today we're discussing Agitprop, specifically in relation to the spat of campus protests that have been going on regarding the Israel-Gaza conflict, because it's really just been insane if you've been paying attention to the news.
Yeah, can we just not get involved in either side of the thing? Because either way, it's a third world theocracy that doesn't particularly like us or our values. So can we just not, please?
Yeah, well, most people want to stay out of it, but like these people are basically forcing the issue, and now I gotta say, if you would have forced the issue on me, I gotta be honest, you're not gonna like what side I'm gonna pick.
Yeah, because at least in Israel, I'm not going to be beheaded anytime soon. Um, and they are at least nominally aligned with America. Therefore, they're obliged to, be at least hospitable to American values. Whereas, in the Palestinian portion of the program, I would be either beheaded for sorcery, thrown off a building for my homosexuality, or just stoned to death because I'm a cripple. So, no,
Uh,
no, thank you.
I swear, the idea of gays for Palestine will never not be funny to me.
I
It was a
it
queers for Palestine.
yeah, it's I like guys, no. Like I actually find parts of those countries' cultures very fascinating. Like I like, every motherfucker in the West grew up on at least some portion of the Thousand and One Arabian Nights. And I've even studied like jinn magic and Solomonic magic, which are very derivative of, the Muslim worldview and so on. So like I have respect for that and that way of life, and I am a student enough of history to know, if it weren't for the, Eastern Roman Empire, large parts of the Roman knowledge base would have been lost, and a lot of that preservation was done by Islamic scholars. So it's not a hatred of Islam or a hatred of the people of those countries, but I also, like I say, am not particularly fond of authoritarian theocracies that haven't grown up out of the Middle Ages yet. And that very much describes like 95 to 98% of all Islamic countries. And I don't feel like getting thrown off a building, castrated and beheaded, or stoned to death. So, no, sorry.
And I remember seeing one protest where queers for Palestine actually showed up, and a Muslim woman started screaming at them and insulting them until they left. Which, I mean, could you predict a more obvious outcome?
Yeah, like, oh, looks like the natural consequences of my actions upgrade of reality is working fine. That's good. That's not broken. Good.
But you still look, the fact that this broke out across college campuses seemed to surprise people for some reason, even though we've already seen this type of shit when it was aimed at conservatives.
Yeah, I don't. And here's the other thing. The very same people who are, queers for Palestining and so on and so forth, from the river to the sea, etc. They hate conservatives and anyone of, a conservative or right leaning bent whatsoever, to the point where many segments of the left will just get erroneously thrown into the right wing category. But but when it comes to a third world theocracy that hasn't matured out of the dark ages, then they drop their pants and open wide. I don't understand. It's
Well, they hate conservatives because they say uh, uh conservatives are Christian moralists who you know hate gay and queer people, and I'm like,
Have you seen
are you
the
serious?
Muslim world? Yeah, again, it's like like when they throw around the term Christo-fascist, and I'm like, okay, so even in the worst, like, Stepford, Leave It to Beaver, Pleasantville-esque dystopia that the traditionalist Christians could muster, even if everyone in in this country was reduced to the status of being basically Amish, that still would be relatively liberal, all things considered, when compared to a large swath of the Muslim world. And yet Sharia fascists, they can do no wrong, don't you know?
Yeah, it's like we all want to talk about Agitprop today because the thing is, a lot of these people have been saying that no, these are just students who are expressing their anger, dismay at what's happening in the Middle East, and I'm like, okay, some of it is that, some of it, but there is also a lot of it that is being propped up by outside forces, and we've definitely seen that. I believe,
Or at least encouraged by them when they did start.
when they were getting broken up by the police, I believe the ones in LA were that a lot of people that they arrested on campus were non-students.
Which I can see happening if people have non-student friends who wind up, joining in on the protest. But still, at the same time, it's a bit like the George Floyd quote-unquote summer of love, where it's like, okay, during a pandemic where like 80% of the country is shut down, you guys have the free time and resources to just burn down large swaths of cities, most of which affect the very same communities you're trying to speak on the behalf of, but never mind. Um,
But I have
yeah,
to
I call
ask,
bullshit.
I have to ask, at what point, like, did the protest stop being peaceful? Because it definitely did at some point. Because when the police came to break it up, they had to tear down barriers designed to keep them out. And a lot of the universities reported that buildings were being broken into, graffiti was being, put up everywhere. A lot of things were destroyed. There was lots of property damage. So
Well,
at a certain
unfortunately,
point,
that is the kind of tactics that they teach in universities now in those, social justice oriented grievance studies um, fields that are more activism than they are academic. Um, that's what they're taught to do, and this time they did it closer to home than they otherwise would. Who knew?
well, I do believe that some of these things are being taught in universities. If you've certainly seen some really out there professors, but I believe that in this situation, well, I can actually confirm that in this situation there was a outside third party who came in and taught them how to do those things. In fact, I actually have the name of the person who was involved with this. Lisa Fithian, who is a professional activist and who actually goes around and is paid to teach people how to use radical, militant, non-violent tactics in these kinds of
Yeah,
demonstrations.
and I would gather that she's very often paid by those very same grievance studies wings of the humanities, fucking
Uh,
poison
hold on,
to
I'm
our
sorry, it wasn't.
civilization.
It wasn't. It was not in LA. It was in Columbia in New York. Sorry, that was my mistake.
Mhm.
But yeah, so like there's definitely, because here's the thing. I believe that she's charged 300 a day for her services, and these stupid kids don't have that kind of money. Their parents probably do, but I doubt that
Yeah,
they're going
the
to give
the
it to
the
the
trust
kids.
fund baby is strong with this one, unfortunately.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like all these people, like this is the biggest thing going on in their lives, and that just shows how shallow their lives are. Like
And
when a
and
conflict on the other side of the world is the biggest thing happening to them.
it disturbs me greatly that the more Ivy League a university is, the more likely it is to currently being reduced to the Chaz. Literally. Like they literally almost turned Columbia into a little mini Chaz. And Harvard is the same way. I can't speak to Yale or any of the other Ivy Leagues, but at the but at the moment it seems to be a universally Ivy League champagne socialist type problem, where the more the more of a stuck up toff you are, the more likely you are to turn your university, which were once the, Ivy League towers of higher learning, into a mini Chaz. And it's like it makes me lose whatever last vestige of respect I had for like academic pursuits, and it makes me grateful that I didn't actually finish college, because my fucking god, when the greatest institutions of higher learning in the entire fucking Western world are indistinguishable from the Chaz, someone cracked a crystal somewhere here.
Yeah, and it's not just that they were protesting; they actively took over areas. Like they were making demands, like complaining to the school that, yeah, we broke into this building, took it over, and are disrupting a large part of the campus, but that we still want our meal plans that we paid for.
And I mean, on the other hand, you have professors giving them college credit for this in those various grievance studies positions.
Like they should be fired for that. Like fuck tenure. Like I don't care. Like if you are actively advocating and encouraging the destruction of the university where you're supposed to be educating, your ass should be fired. I don't care what status you have.
Remember when Melissa Click was the worst of it, and now Melissa Click is just rank and file normal now.
I don't. We had absolutely no idea how ridiculous things would get back then.
Oh, 2013! If only we knew how good we had.
But yeah, these students and their outside provocateurs, yeah, they disrupted campus. Like they were also not just like they said that they were just being anti Israel, but they were also harassing Jewish students. Like you claim that you want a ceasefire, but like what good does this do? What good does this accomplish? Like because you're yelling at the
Did
school
you
can't
watch that
fucking
one
do
video I
anything.
sent you? The
Uh,
woman who was a Jewish born Muslim.
I believe so. Yes.
Did you look at the comments?
I don't believe so. I watched it on my phone. And I don't think I looked at the comments. What were the comments saying?
The comments were saying how she was obviously confused, how she must be a plant, how she couldn't possibly be a real person, blah 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 blah. Or if she was, she's an idiot, yada yada. Like I was watching that clip and I was immediately thinking, yes, this woman is entirely based. And then I looked at the comments and I slowly lost all faith in humanity and wanted to burn things to the ground. Because if you can look at someone who is sensibly telling you that that this conflict is bullshit in like great detail, and you can think that she is the nutter, then you are just too far gone at that point. You are far too ideologically warped to be expected to have a sane opinion on anything.
Yeah. I actually have a article I want to read. This came out a month ago, but it's extremely relevant. This is son of Hamas founder blasts student supporters in U.S. Those pro-Palestinian, those pro-Palestine need to go to a mental asylum. So this guy is the son of a Hamas leader, was raised in Gaza, grew up in that kind of culture. I believe he was a former member of Hamas before he broke away from them. Good for him. I believe his name is Mossab Hassan Youssef, the son of Hamas founder Sheikh Hassan Youssef. Maybe let's see. Here's remarks where yeah, they need to go to a mental asylum. He made the remarks as he appeared on Dr. Phil Primetime last week to debate two anti Israel student activists from the University of Michigan. It's very disappointing to see Americans supporting Hamas and thinking that Hamas is a cool thing, while Hamas does not respect any of those followers. Let's see.
I
The Hamas
mean,
defect.
where is the lie? There doesn't appear to be one.
Yeah, he's this guy's extremely rich. Like I watched some of his Dr. Phil um, interview, and he just completely owned these two dumb students. Let me see here. The Hamas defector, so he was in Hamas before he defected, said the bloodthirsty terrorists would torture them and massacre them with no mercy. Youssef went on to explain how the militants refer to the American supporters as useful idiots. I mean, when they're right, they're right.
I if the shoe does fit, thou must wear it. Like, yeah, that makes sense.
Let's see. Youssef, who defected to Israel in 1997 and became a spy for the Shin Bet intelligence agency, insisted that anti Israel protesters don't know what they're supporting. Let's see. He called Hamas a monster that has been hijacking an entire society and endangering the entire Middle East, pushing the world toward a global war. What's happening is insanity, he continued. Those pro Palestine need to go to a mental asylum. Youssef said he knew what he was talking about because he spent time in prison with Hamas leaders. I was born there and part of that culture, part of that religion, he explained. Some people hear about Hamas or they see an avatar of a Hamas fighter carrying a rifle, a freedom fighter, quote unquote, and they think that it's a fancy idea to support such a monster. When Youssef then took part in a debate with University of Michigan student Salma and Zainab, he accused them of wearing keffeys, traditional Palestinian scarves, to distract from the fact that they have no legitimacy to speak on behalf of the cause. On what authority do you speak? He asked rhetorically. Do you only speak on the authority of Hamas propaganda? Zainab interjected, asking why he believed she was simply reciting Hamas talking points. Because if you were a decent human being, you can say that the thousands who were killed on October 7th, that was a crime against humanity. It was a genocide. Yusuf shot back. And I actually saw that interview. And when, Dr. Phil and he both asked about that, like she just would not allow herself to
Error
condemn what
does not
happened on
compute.
October 7th. Yeah. So, like,
And frankly, this is why I don't have anything against the Muslim world or Muslim culture in general, because guys like this do exist and deserve. Frankly, if I could snap my fingers and Thanos snap away all the jihadists, this is the kind of person who I would want leading the Muslim world. People like this, people like Imam Tawhidi, people like Majid Nawaz, even though he's like less of a Islam reform activist than he used to be. But there are good people in the Muslim world, just like there are good people everywhere else. And frankly, one of the reasons I'm disgusted by the Islamist types, the let's keep the world a third world theocracy types, is because it harms people like this, people who actually do deserve my respect and have it. I would buy this guy a drink if he drinks. I don't know if he drinks because I don't know how committed he may or may not still be to the tenets of Islam. But assuming this guy drinks and I ever ran into him, I would buy him a drink.
let's see. He went on to say that the student activists are proving that Hamas wants to destroy Israel. We have the problem with the pro-Palestine people who are actually giving Hamas cover. They are participating in the crime, he told the young women. I think enough is enough, and now it's proven, and you're helping Hamas prove to the world that Palestine depends on the destruction of the state of Israel. And if you've actually seen like videos of people, of just like normal people in Palestine, like their hatred for Jewish people in Israel is like unquestioning, absolute.
Vitriolic. Yeah.
Like they have children cartoons that teach them to hate Jewish people. Like
The German mustache painter could not have done any better than that if he won, basically.
See, you cannot even condemn Hamas and say what they did on October 7th was an act of a savage group. And this is not acceptable, and we are not going to agree to it. And I tell you something, for the next 10, 20 years, the Palestinian people will pay the bill that Hamas has caused, and most likely in blood. Even Dr. Phil took aim at the student activists after they refused to say whether they condemned the terrorist attack. There are some things that are just fundamental human decency, and when I ask you if what happened on October 7th is something you condemn, you say, well, you have to look at it. Well, you have to look at that by looking at hundreds of years of conflicts. No, you don't. The TV host said, "It's either right or it's wrong, and I don't need 100 years of conflict to know it was wrong." Let me tell you something, Dr. Phil continued. When someone comes over a fence and goes into someone's house and burns their infant in its cribs, I don't give a damn why they did it. It's wrong. Dr. Phil has been becoming increasingly based.
I can't speak to that because I haven't watched him in many, many years, but he
He's
does
appeared
seem
on
like he's coming on the right
like
side
he
here, so that's good.
he's actually been coming out a lot against the woke. Like I think he's appeared on like Bill Maher and Joe Rogan and just been like really really based.
And if so, good for him. I'm not going to say anything though because, like I said, I haven't watched Dr. Phil in like 10 years, so I have been away from Dr. Phil, and I can't speak to his basedness or lack thereof. Um,
But yeah, these these students are absolutely running cover. Like it's not just pro Palestinian. Oh, we want a ceasefire. Like no, they're actively running cover for Hamas, the terrorists. And
I
like
mean, they
I
keep
believe,
chanting from the river to the sea, and anyone who knows anything about the geopolitics of that region knows what that fucking means. It means that they want the state of Israel dissolved and the people who are part of it in chains or tortured probably by the Islamist radicals therein. So, like, again, I'm sitting here going, why in the fuck is this any of our business? These are two different third world theocracies that I want nothing to do with. But if I must choose a side, if I don't want to, but if, then I am going to side with Israel on the grounds that they wouldn't probably throw me in prison over just being who I am as a person. Whereas the Palestinian side wouldn't even have the decency to throw me in prison. They would There would be three separate angry mobs all looking to kill me for three separate reasons if I were in that part of the world. As much as
yeah,
it pains me that I will never see the better parts of the Muslim world because I don't want to put myself at risk of those things until the cooler heads prevail, like this guy who defected from Hamas, like Majid Nawaz, like Imam Tawhidi, until those cooler heads prevail, it is not safe for me in those countries. Period. And quite frankly, it's not safe for me anymore in most of Western Europe because they keep importing these fuckers. But that is a different conversation for a different day.
yeah. But uh, I honestly I wouldn't be safe there either, given that they don't like Christians either.
Yeah, and they certainly don't like apostates of any kind. So there's there's that. Again, it's I feel about this the same way I feel about China, which is because I find the Chinese culture interesting and fascinating, it makes me all the more emphatic when I say fuck the CCP. Um, and because I find the Middle Eastern culture fascinating, it makes me all the more emphatic when I say fuck the Islamic theocrats because they are ruining all the good parts of that culture and making anyone who is one of the good parts of that culture one of the civilized human beings who I could reasonably have a conversation with. They are making those people live in fear or they're just straight up killing them. So yeah, no, fuck the Islamic theocrats for the same reason as I say fuck the CTP. You are ruining a otherwise good culture that could otherwise be a meaningful contribution to the world, and you are preventing it from being so. Not to mention, you're keeping people in the 21st goddamn century trapped in a ninth century ethic. And this isn't even that old as far as that is concerned, because if you look back at pictures of the Muslim world from the 70s, there really wasn't that much of a difference between like Egypt or Israel in the 70s and America in the 70s. It wasn't until the Gulf Wars and all the other Middle Eastern wars kicked off that the fundamentalist preachers, the fundamentalist imams, got back in power, and then they threw things back into basically third world shithole territory. And it staggers me that something can be so undone in the space of like 50 years. Like, all the progress they had made for the last 500 years had been undone in 50 years, give or take. The good news is, in theory, that means it should also be easy to undo it and return things to a semblance of order. But until the Islamists and the jihadists get out of power and the cooler heads prevail, that is never going to happen. And shit like this is only exacerbating the problem.
Yeah, I mean, look, we talk about outside provocateurs. I remember there was a speech given, who I believe was by the Lisa. So what was her name again? Lisa Fithian. I believe that she at Columbia actually gave a speech where she called Hamas freedom fighters, and it was a very impassioned and honestly kind of frightening speech. It just goes to show how utterly radical these people are. Like, these people
Well,
are
because
like,
they essentially view Israel as a puppet state to America and or the West, and as a result, they can justify in their own heads why Israel as a state is bad, and therefore anyone who supports them is also bad. Um, which is funny, because on the one hand, they have to view Jews as victims because Holocaust and evil German mustache man. But on the other hand, they have to view Israel as the enemy because they are a quote unquote puppet to the West and the Western culture bad. And simultaneously, they have to view the Islamists as victims and freedom fighters because they are brown third world people who hate the West, and that must make them the good guys.
these are the exact
I
same
mean,
type of
for the
people
love
who
of
use
God,
our
they've literally started lionizing Bin Laden because he is a radical third world activist who hates the West, therefore good,
Yeah,
apparently.
I remember that was on that went viral on TikTok. I believe. I believe it was Biden's. Sorry, not Biden's. For a bit of a Freudian slip there. Bin Laden's. Uh, Bin Laden's letter after 9/11 happened, and I believe it went viral on TikTok. But uh, speaking of aforementioned Freudian slip, like, a lot of these protests has put a lot of pressure on the president regarding the Israel Hamas conflict. And but here's the thing: he's a weak president. So even if you put pressure on him, like, Biden has tried to convince Israel to go for a ceasefire. But the thing is, like, Israel just ignores it, because here's the thing: after the October 7th attack, I don't think anyone's going to be able to convince Israel
No,
that Hamas is not a.
no amount of politicalese is going to get them out of this, because you forget the whole, oh wait, they freaking assaulted our country like a bunch of third world barbarians and killed, men, women, and children. Therefore, fuck them. Like,
and they still have
as
hostages.
much as I would prefer that this conflict was not happening at all, I can't really fault Israel for going, yeah, no, fuck them. They behaved like a bunch of third world barbarians. We're going to treat them like a bunch of third world barbarians.
It's like these people crossed the Rubicon. Except unlike Caesar, they don't have the juice to back it up. Like you picked a fight you had no hope of winning, and you were basically relying on the kinder sentiments of your enemy to prevail, so you could get a ceasefire, regain your strength, and then try and attack them again. Except this time, they're not relenting because you went too far.
Yeah, because you broke the informal laws of peaceful engagement, and so now there's a blood debt that has to be repaid at least. And unfortunately, for as much as the Islamists have contempt for the quote unquote useful idiots, the useful idiots are basically the only reason why America isn't jumping down your throat too. I hope you know. Like the only reason the entire West is not theoring you into next week Palestine is because there are enough people on the social justice wing of society that are putting up an opposition to it. So while you might have contempt for them, they're the only reason that America is not also putting its metaphorical knee on your neck here.
So I
Frankly, I
gotta
wish
say,
that I wish that weren't the case, but here we are.
although I gotta say, there was one moment during all the protests that I really, really enjoyed. There were pro-Palestinian protesters on one side, and then counter-protesters on the other side of the street, and in the middle were the police, and both sides at the same time were just shouting "fuck Joe Biden."
I do like how this has tripled Joe Biden's likability on the left as well, because he did try to walk the Israel is our ally and fuck violence stance, but that wasn't good enough for large swaths of the college-educated campaign socialists. So now even the like hardcore radical core of the left doesn't like Biden. I do enjoy that. Really wish this didn't have to come at the expense of October 7th, but
Yeah,
at least there is a silver lining here. That this utterly crippled Joe Biden's core of support, and now he's even less likely to be reelected than he otherwise would be. Granted, he wouldn't have had good chances either way, but as Napoleon once is quoted to have said, "Never interrupt your enemy when he's making a mistake."
yeah. Uh, I just gotta say, like, he tried to walk the line. He tried to appease everybody and ended up pissing off everybody instead. And I gotta say, I honestly don't think this would happen if we had an actual like. I don't think October 7th would have happened if we had an actual strong president in place.
Frankly, if Trump were reelected, Ukraine probably wouldn't have happened. And October 7th probably wouldn't have happened, and like a bunch of other international scandals and wars probably wouldn't have happened, because for all of the constant drum beating about Trump is going to drag the world into World War III, his presidency was one of the most peaceful presidencies of my entire lifetime, in that no new conflicts were started, and a large percentage of the perennial ongoing conflicts actually were abated or lessened significantly during his tenure.
Yeah, I mean, they always thought Trump was going to destroy us all. 4 years into almost 4 years into Joe Biden's presidency, we are closer to World War III than I have ever seen us.
Yeah, the good news is everyone is blaming Biden for it. So those chances of his reelection are not looking good, and that makes me happy. Because okay, I am nominally on the left. So in theory, if the Democrats got their shit together and ran someone that I could actually conceive of voting for, like a Tulsi Gabbard and Andrew Yang or a Ro Khanna, then I would probably still be inclined to vote for them. But they're not going to appease their base. They're not going to actually choose to select an actual populist left politician. They're going to try and go the establishment unipartyist route again and go Biden again.
Well, here's the
Well,
thing,
if
Dalton.
it's a choice between one side with a populist libertarian candidate and the other side with an establishment institutionalist candidate, then I'm going with the populist libertarian candidate, whether they be right wing or left wing. I don't fucking care. If it was a case of one variety of populism versus another, you might be able to persuade me to vote left again. But you're not gonna get Bernie's batteries are dead. Let's be real about that. I don't think Andrew Yang is even a Democrat anymore. I think he's formed his own little mini party there. And Tulsi defected, so like Ro Khanna is the one remaining decent like left wing politician as far as I'm concerned. I might be persuaded to vote Cornel West or Tina Turner, but even that would take some doing. But no, they're not even gonna try to actually appease their own base. They're going to try and screw their own base in favor of the establishment again. So no wonder literally
Well,
no one wants Biden.
in a way, they're kind of held hostage by their own base because, all right, Biden is awful. Like that's just a fact of like nature. But he's not.
When he's even compos mentis, which isn't often anymore either, but that's yeah.
Well, because he's the current incumbent, since he wants to run, they can't really get rid of him, and they also can't improve his ticket because Kamala Harris is a minority woman, so like they're not go. So like if they got rid of her, their base would eat them alive, even though she's awful and off-putting.
Yeah, like even the base of the Democrats refer to her derisively as Kamala the cop, or it is actually an accurate summation of her. She is the worst kind of like tough on crime is sometimes used as a slur when it's not warranted, but she is the bad part of tough on crime. She is every bad cop trope smushed into a female politician rapper. No, which is why it was so easy for Tulsi Gabbard to just point at her own record and go, "Your own record, no jitsu." I
I
freaking
gotta say, there are some talks about Tulsi possibly being Trump's vice VP
I
pick
know,
in this
I
election.
am so
I gotta
looking
say,
forward to it.
if that happens, the vice presidential debates are going to be the most amazing they have ever been.
I'm just like unironically, like I say, I am more left wing policy wise. But if you give me a Trump Tulsi ticket, that is my vote spoken for. Unless they run like Andrew Yang and Ro Khanna on the other side and kick Biden and Kamala to the curb, which they're not going to do. Like if you somehow manage to get Tulsi and Trump on one ticket, I'm just my vote is sold. My vote is spoken for thereafter, pretty much. But barring Kamala and Biden both dropping dead and them being forced to run someone I can actually tolerate on the other side.
Let's see. So there's actually a good bit of irony here. So you know that these protests have hurt Joe Biden and that they're calling him Genocide Joe. It's hurting his approval rating. It's making him also look bad because, it's looking like America is just completely lawless and has no sense of order or structure anymore. But I think one of the most ironic points about this is that, well, let me pull it up. Yeah, that a lot of the people who were backing the organizations who were, supporting these protests were funded by a lot of top Biden donors, including George Soros, David Rockefeller Jr., and Susan and Nick Pritzker, heirs to the Hyatt Hotel empire.
Well, I would be shocked, but you're just going to have to imagine it because there are some things that are so obvious that it bears no comment. Who could have
Hosted by the
predicted this?
name
Literally
Picard,
everyone.
eh,
But this is the corner into which they painted themselves. They won't run a non-establishment Democrat. They won't give any leeway into the populist realm. They won't they won't side for or against social justice. They're just stuck in the middle. So their own base hates them. The establishment hates them because they have to do something in favor of the base, otherwise the base is going to flip shit. The other side of the establishment hates them, and of course the MAGA movement hates them. So, like, literally, and anyone who's not politically aligned is being aggressively sexually pursued by things like inflation. So, literally everyone who could possibly not be in favor of Biden is not in favor of Biden right now. Like, literally, the only people who are in favor of him are, like, the journalist class, and even they are split down the middle because a lot of them side with the grassroots activist wing of the party instead of the establishment wing of the party. So when no one likes you or your running mate, which is the other thing, because the only person less likable than Biden right now would be Kamala, and yet Kamala is his running mate.
You mentioned the economy, but I think this is also an important part of you mentioned. You forgot to mention that's sinking Biden, and that would be immigration.
Yeah. So like, no one who isn't, like, being paid by the party has any reason to like the Biden administration. Meanwhile, thanks to the inept persecution of Orange Man, you're actually managing to convince people that wouldn't normally vote for him to vote for him on the grounds that he is the enemy of the establishment, and thereby drawing to him anyone who hates the establishment, which is damn near everyone at this point because the establishment is so evidently not fit for purpose.
Yeah, it was also recently found out that the Biden administration has been paying influencers to try and help them look good.
Oh God, the "How do you do, fellow kids" thing. I can't.
Yeah.
Did you see his May 4th message?
With Mark Hamill? Yeah, that was cringe.
I just, like, do you? But this is the problem. This is exactly the problem. They cannot understand how populism could in any way be valid because they actually view the populace of their own fucking country as dangerous morons. And so they try desperately to salve the egos of the populace by just pandering harder and harder and harder to them, not realizing that even the pandering they're using isn't going to work because thanks to the loving administrations of social justice, ESG, and DEI, every franchise that has been significant or popular since the emergence of Gen X has been fucked, like, and undermined in every conceivable way. Is there a single major franchise that hasn't been, like, totally turned inside out by subversion, deconstruction, postmodernism, and social justice? Because I can't think of one.
I'm praying that the Eye of Sauron doesn't land on Back to the Future.
Yeah, that's true. It hasn't come from Back to the Future yet to being the operative word.
Let's keep our fingers crossed and pray, my friend.
I just, like, because well, Doctor Who is no more. Star Trek is no more. Star Wars is no more. Lord of the Rings is on life support at best. D&D, that's gone. Anything relating to Wizards of the Coast is gone.
Warhammer
Um,
40K is in the process of deteriorating.
yeah, they're undergoing their own internal chaos invasion. Literally. Um,
Razor Fist's BattleTech is having a lot of problems as well.
yeah. So and I have no reason to bet against the Razor because I'm not an idiot. Um, so like li- like at this point, literally, I think we only have like there are a couple one-off franchises that aren't being fucked. Like Dresden Files will probably be good as long as Jim Butcher remains alive.
Yeah, but that's
Because he
then
is
you get into the whole Tolkien thing where, yeah, you have the creator, and maybe if you get good air in there to protect the series, it'll last for a bit while. But eventually, like someone might come in, like some member of the family might come in and just sell out the whole thing, like what happened with Lord of the Rings.
yeah. I'd like to say that I still had Sandman, but let's be honest. Every time Neil Gaiman gets to adjust or refresh something in the Sandman franchise, he ends up ruining it. So 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 like there's Dresden Files. There might be a couple more one-off like novel series or something like that, but then again, they're also not being adapted anytime soon either. So like literally, our only options are to make new stuff or to homebrew our own versions of the old stuff so that we can still keep some version of it. So even the attempts to pander to
I would
to pop culture isn't going to work because they've ruined large swaths of popular culture.
I would also argue to a very small degree Harry Potter, but that's only because Rowling enjoys trolling these people.
Well, that and I'm gonna be honest with you. Harry Potter wasn't all that good to begin with, so keeping Harry Potter is something of a Pyrrhic victory.
Yeah,
Um, and even that being said, given that J.K. Rowling is currently in the process of being unpersoned, I'm worried that they're going to ruin an adaptation of her stuff just to spite her one of these days.
I mean they are
And
making a TV series of it, I believe, and like any opportunity they can get to fuck with it. Like if some small thing manages to escape her gaze, they're going to do it. You know they are.
yet, speaking of fantasy franchises, Netflix is doing a Chronicles of Narnia adaptation with Greta Gerwig of Barbie fame. So
Oh god, that's
that's
not going.
that's good. So we have Netflix and Greta Gerwig doing presumably presumably removing any sort of Christianization in the Chronicles of Narnia, which, considering how central Christianity is to the mythos of Narnia, um, will there be anything left of the Narnia franchise when all the overt Christianity is removed? Like I
Well,
I
all right,
never even liked Narnia all that much because it was so overtly and on the nosedly Christian, like very very overbearingly in my opinion. But to remove the Christianity from Narnia is to basically remove Narnia from Narnia.
I can already call it right now. I can see it in my mind's eye. They're going to make the sisters show up the brothers constantly, and they're going to try and make the witch a sympathetic villain.
And Susan is probably going to wind up being the protagonist.
I I'll bet you $1,000.
The pseudo atheist character who didn't end up getting to go to Narnia heaven because she didn't believe anymore is going to now be the protagonist because social justice. Like it's sad, but unironically, I think I think The Magicians might be a better Narnia adaptation than that Narnia adaptation will end up being. Like,
The
Fillory is a
Magicians was
better XP of Narnia than this version of Narnia is probably going to be.
it was kind of a combination between Harry Potter and Narnia. If I'm thinking about it.
Well, a improved Harry Potter at the very least, because I think the world building and the magic system are much better done in The Magicians than they are in than it is in Harry Potter. But but what I mean is that the Chatwins and Fillory were definitely supposed to be kind of a Narnia XP, Narnia
Oh,
for adults
definitely,
almost.
definitely, like 1,000%.
So like it was very obviously supposed to be kind of a spoof of Narnia, and I don't even think the guy who wrote the books, Lev Grossman, would dispute that all that much. Um, so I fully suspect that it's going to end up being that what the Magicians did with the Chatwins and Fillory is probably going to wind up being a better version of Narnia than the Netflix Greta Gerwig version. So bang goes that franchise.
To wrap things up regarding the college protest, there is something I wanted to talk about, and that is where is it? Oh yeah, I believe here is the article that I wanted to read from the New York Post. This is kind of hilarious. Columbia law students want school to cancel finals past all students because they're irrevocably shaken after the protest breakup. This is basically after the
Yep,
police
I heard
came
about
in
that. I heard about
and
that.
tore everything down. They just wanted an automatic pass on their exams for the emotional distress they received from.
And the sad thing is, quite a lot of the professors are probably inclined to give it to them because quite a lot of the professors were also the kind that gave school credit for doing this protesting, because activism was in fact the point of their particular wing of grievance studies in the first place. So that this protest could basically be seen as a school project to a lot of these classes.
But I gotta say, they would never work for the state because they hate the state. So I foresee a lot of people going to jail once these people enter a courtroom.
Unfortunately, I suspect they'll just become journos and or writers and get hired by the ESG inclined companies. The
Yeah,
the second, third, and fourth reincarnation of Sweet Baby Inc. is a coming.
I don't know, dude. I mean, I've heard some things about ESG hitting a rough patch lately. So I
Yes,
mean, it's gonna take
I'm
a while before.
glad to see it go, but I think it'll still have one last go in it. I mean, for the love of God, Velma got a season 3 announcement.
Rip. How?
I
What on?
I don't I don't know. I'm just reporting the thing. Don't shoot the messenger. But yes, Velma got a season 3. Constantine didn't even get a full season, but Velma's getting a season 3. Firefly,
Constantine was fucking good.
yeah, yeah. Firefly is perennially the quintessential short-lived show, and yet Velma is getting a season 3, and Batwoman got 5 seasons.
Yeah, I feel like this would be one of those things where even if somebody explained it to me, I still wouldn't understand.
Yeah, it like as cliche as their statement of no justice, no peace, uh, is stuff like that makes me want to go no justice, no peace because there is very clearly no justice in the world, that I'm sick of being quiet about it.
I mean, it really is disgusting. Lucifer had to be saved by Netflix.
Yep, Lucifer had to be saved by Netflix. So did The Expanse. or was that saved by Amazon? But nevertheless,
That was saved by Amazon.
it had to be saved. So yes, there is quite literally no justice in modern day entertainment, and it pisses me off.
Let me see. I'm gonna.
The silver lining is Joker 2 is coming out, and it's probably going to piss a lot of people off. Again.
Let me read here. The student editors at the Columbia Law Review want administrators to cancel the law school's exams and pass all its students after cops cleared out an anti-Israel encampment last week, claiming in a letter that the police action left the student body irrevocably shaken. The letter
Well, you wanted to LARP as revolutionaries. This is what happens to revolutionaries.
Yeah, the letter penned right after the NYPD dismantled protesters' tent city Tuesday night and evicted them from nearby Hamilton Hall also said the school should at least let students receive a simple pass fail grade because they're just so upset. Like
Wait,
the
what school?
violence
What school was this?
Columbia Law.
Ah, I was going to say because my university, Wright State University, also had a dormitory called Hamilton, and it made me wonder if somehow my old university had gotten into the thick of this bullshit. Fortunately, not, but still nostalgia.
There was one bright shining star that emerged from all this chaos. Do you know what I'm going to talk about?
Hmm.
It's very near and dear to my heart. Something that was very important to me when I came, whenever I was in university. The based fraternity bros. Yeah, there were these fraternity boys who, at the protests were trying to take down the American flag and put up the Palestinian flag, and the fraternity boys blocked it, protected the American flag, stopped Old Glory from touching the ground as per flag code, and while they were doing this, sang the national anthem.
I mean, silver linings. Which
Yeah,
which does which does allow us to dovetail back into the men's issues portion of the program, because you know as well as I do, I'm certain, that the majority of these protesters are either feminist type women or very, very, very effeminate men. It's not the like hardcore autistic engineer types and their STEM degrees that are doing this. It's not the frat bro giga chads. It's not the people in trade schools and shite doing this, or the programmers getting programming degrees. It's the it's the grievance studies and the neo-Hegelianism and the Frankfurt School bullshit brigade that are doing this.
yeah. There's actually I believe a GoFundMe in order to throw the fraternity bros a party, and I believe I think it reached up to $300,000 before it stopped.
Okay, where can I donate to this?
I don't know. I'll look it up after the stream. But like wow, like, that is amazing. Like imagine the party you could throw with 300 grand.
I it would be one of those Todd Phillips hangover movie type parties.
But have you ever seen the movie Project X?
Yes, I have. I was just thinking of that one too.
Yeah, that's what I imagine this would come to. But
Just
there wasn't. Hold on, you go.
no, go ahead.
I honestly think that the rise of the base fraternity bros that gets Antifa might be becoming a thing because there was another group of fraternity guys at another university that Antifa was protesting, and they confronted them and challenged them to a push-up contest.
It's literally the Chad versus Wojak memes.
When memes become reality, you've hit
like
the point
like
of ridiculous.
unironically meme magic, ladies and gentlemen. But in all seriousness, this does dovetail nicely with the nominal mend issues point of this podcast, which is I think that this kind of agitprop works best by exploiting what we could less than charitably call the feminine mindset. And by feminine, I don't necessarily mean woman or all womankind, but the the stereotypical soy boys and male feminist as well, the twinks and the highly effeminate people, the feminine affected people. Um, it is somewhat telling that I would imagine the majority of STEM workers or STEM students in these universities just probably did their best to go about their own business, and the majority of the trade school workers and programmers and such also probably did their best to go about their business. The only people who did this kind of shit are the sorts of people who major in grievance study bullshit, in social justice, in neo-Hegelianism, in critical theory, in the Frankfurt School, etc. And as we can see in the form of our Chad fraternity fellows there, um, it very much seems like not only are they being opposed by the more masculine-minded individuals, but that masculinity itself might be anathema to this mindset of being admissible to this kind of agitprop. It's kind of like how in the Soviet Union, whenever the Soviet Union wanted to foment a revolution, they would find all of the wastrels and failures and um, false starters and the people who had failed to launch, and essentially weaponize their chips on their shoulders against the functional members of society, more or less.
Karl Marx himself was actually a lot like a lot of these people.
Yeah, the apple, the poison apple didn't fall very far from the poison tree on that one. I
Yeah,
mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one at this point who has seen his father's letters to him.
yeah, I actually heard those as well.
The the ones that are like, um, I don't know where you get off thinking that you're this privileged rich rat, but yeah, no, we don't have the resources for this, and I expect you to actually make something of your talents rather than just fomenting this kind of revolutionary bullshit. Which, I mean, the more things
Yeah, like
change, the more they say this thing.
his father worked hard to give him so many opportunities, and he squandered them all away. And he had a fiance too, and he threw that away as well.
Yeah, the more things change, the more they really do stay the same. Which again ties back nicely to the whole agitprop seems to be the most effective on those who are of a feminine persuasion, be they men or
Because
women.
the arguments are very emotionally based, and um, women and people who are very feminine in nature usually are more susceptible to emotional arguments and pleas.
It would certainly seem that way. It's it's no wonder that this sort of mentality grew out of the very corrupted version of the humanities that we now have. The one that sees like culture as almost a more poetic or symbolic thing than a actual force or an actual rational thing.
Okay, we've been going for a little over an hour. Do you have any final words about the protests and the provocateurs?
I mean, they're dooming themselves, so I shouldn't really say much again while my enemy is making a mistake. But good for the Giga Chads of the situation. May you go on to furthermore praise Keck, lads.
Yeah, I just want to say that if these people wanted to just destroy themselves and only themselves, I really wouldn't care. But the problem is that they're also trying to drag the rest of us down with them.
Yeah.
And
And thank you for
that
destroying whatever remained of my respect for academia, because when the highest possible institutions of learning are the ones that most resemble the Chaz, I don't feel bad for having flunked out of college anymore. Or rather, flunked to the point of being suspended from college and choosing not to go back. But in any case, it would appear that intellectuals can only thrive outside of academia at this point.
I mean, it would appear that college has been going down for quite some time. And actually, thinking back on it, there were some hints of this stuff back whenever I first went to college at Slippery Rock. Of course, I didn't know what the hell I was dealing with at the time. But looking back on it with what I know now, there are absolutely some hints of this nonsense that
Yeah,
were there.
I'm just glad that I got out before it fully metastasized.
I did go back to university, to a different university, but it never really got that bad where I was, thankfully, because like if I had been one like because it was a smaller school, but if I had been like somewhere like Pitt or TMU, like this definitely would have found me somewhere.
And apparently, a couple years after I left my school, I kept in touch with a lot of people who were still going there. And apparently, between the social justice nonsense and the financial mistakes of the dean of students, my school apparently became an absolute dumpster fire of a place shortly after I left. So
Really?
it was one of those cases where failing kind of ended up benefiting me in that way.
Okay, I'm gonna wrap it up here. Thank you for watching, everybody. I've been Mystery.
I've been Dalton Mortimer, the Authenticator, and we've been the Duality Man. Cheers, guys.
Bye, everybody.